This whole nature and nurture participating in the evolution of any species. We talked about it last time. How much does it play? How much change is there from nature? How much from nurture? And going forward, the evolution of man, human, how much energy should we spend in evolving our nature, the instinct, the machinery, and in evolving the nurture, the surroundings, the environment? Well, here we are again on the path, and we are going to talk about this today. We talked about the Martian coming and looking at Earth and finding out that humans are erect as a life form as opposed to everyone else, and we talked about that. But suppose it's not a Martian, suppose it's someone else right here on Earth, humans, some observer, and most probably the answer will be language. Humans communicate, we are communicating right now, very precise, very rich, variegated, nuanced language. And that is a distinction between the humans and other animals, other species. And there are parts, multiple parts to this difference between humans and other species in the use of language. One part is what we would call the nature part. The nature part is how our body has evolved to vocalize various sounds and create much more precise intonations and pronunciations. So the position of our larynx, the control of breath as it goes in and out and modulates the frequency, the timbre, the volume of the sound that comes out, and also our ears. The evolution of the form of the vocal cords and mouth, etc., and the ears is one part of the nature side of this equation. If you look at our closest genetic neighbors, the chimpanzees, the genetic overlap is something like 99% or more. And it's a slightly different structure. I mean, they also vocalize. Lots of animals vocalize, right from so many birds to whales to pretty much every animal, dogs, goats, otters vocalize. And there's enough variation in the vocalization that they can communicate certain information, shall I say, or even state of mind, emotion. But in the human form, we have fine-tuned a lot of this vocalization and hearing to be much more fine-grained, much more refined. So that's one part in which nature or the machinery of evolution and the physical form has played in distinguishing the human from other species. The other part of it is let's go to the richness of the language itself. When animals vocalize, let's say deer or rabbits or whatever, they are saying, I sense danger, or maybe there's slightly even more refinement to that. I sense a lion, or I sense a wolf, or I sense a certain kind of predator, and that's what we communicate. Or it could be, birds chirping. They're saying, "Hey, I see food here. I see some carrion. I see some something, and I want to call others to it." So there is vocalization and some level of specialization as well. In the human case, I think we have taken it to quite a length. We can be very precise about what we see. Now we can give very precise names to things. Here's a tree, here's a branch, here's a leaf of the branch, here's, this color, particular sap green or sage green or whatever, very precise shades of descriptions that we can give to the things that we see. So in a sense, you can say there's a bigger vocabulary. I sense a lion, I sense a tiger, I sense a wolf, I sense a dog, I sense a rabbit, I sense a deer. So everything is named, and the names are part of our dictionary or vocabulary, which makes it quite rich. The other part is a bit of abstraction. So, let's say a prey species vocalizes, I sense threat, I sense an eagle swooping down, let us say. They have very precise vocalization of that one fear. In the human case, you can say many more things. You can say, I see a lion. That's the simple case. Then you can say, I saw a lion yesterday over here. So you can remember and relate that. You can also have hearsay. I heard, this person tell me that there was a lion here 3 days ago. Then it goes beyond that. We can, just as we said, I see a lion, or I saw a lion yesterday, or, John told me there was a lion here yesterday, so forth. We can take it out of that context and have a sense of imagination. What if there was an eagle flying in right here? What if something, we are imagining, we are simulating a reality, we are creating a different reality and living in it. And that is some level of abstraction that we are seeing. And that now starts to become, slightly different. We can imagine, we can put ourselves into situations that are not real. We can create worlds that are different from physical reality, and in a sense what you would call models, and that starts to get us towards mathematics, towards more abstraction, towards creating rule structures or inference structures or learning structures that are abstracted away from reality. Now, this language processing, which has to do with, of course, the storage of vocabulary of the dictionary. So we have increased our machinery to remember a lot more things, but we've also some machinery to process, to create, to generate, bring out, and to understand language. And this machinery is, intrinsic. So nature has built it in us, and with nurture we adapt this innate machinery towards different languages. So if you learned language one, let's say English, you learned a whole bunch of vocabulary and rules and grammar and speech and diction and pronunciation of English. But someone else, adapts it to Hindi or Chinese or Russian. So this, and of course, we can learn multiple languages. So this innate machinery is able to adapt to the specific nurture of language, of a specific language, and exhibit that nurtured behavior from that innate nature of the machinery. And there's a hierarchy of these languages, the so-called Chomsky hierarchy. Now you can have simple enumerations or sequences, or you can have contextual understanding of sequences of symbols. And anyway, there are 4 steps to this hierarchy, which goes up to what is called recursively enumerable. And so there's counter-free automata, there's context-free grammars, context-sensitive grammars, and then recursively enumerable language. And it seems like this machinery that we have is inbuilt with the capability of understanding these levels of language. Or rather, maybe the machinery is even more abstract, and we have adapted it to a language of this nature that we use to communicate. We are very precise in language communication, vocabulary, word structure, grammar structure and tense and implications and intentions and all that kind of stuff. But there's also other communication that we do, which is perhaps, well, it is communication. It may not be as precisely explainable in language, but it is precise in its own way. By which I mean that what it intends to communicate is communicated, and that is the medium of art. Could be dance, could be painting, could be sculpture, so many different art forms. And what they communicate, essentially, we go to the rasa theory, is emotion. They communicate the core of emotion between one person to the next. So good art somehow breaks this interpersonal barrier and reaches from the creator to the viewer or from viewer to the viewer uh, by communicating something uh, fairly precise, depending on the art, of course, but still not, you know, captured in the language or in the mathematical abstraction that we have talked about as a distinction between human and the other species. But it does communicate, so there must be something in our machinery that can adapt to this communication of art. Of course, I forgot music, which is also fundamentally communicating emotions plus other things, but the majority of it is the communication of emotion as precisely as possible. So what we are saying is that we have this inbuilt machinery endowed by nature that we populate through nurture with symbols, vocabulary, rules, understanding of common meanings of things and the triggers of emotion and so forth that give us the richness of communication and experience which together define form the human species. Now, other species probably also have some of these things in some measure, but the scale, the precision, and the richness, nuance, to the degree seems to separate us. It's almost like an emergent property here, that the certain scale of these things enables the emergence of something new. And that's a very crucial observation here, the emergence of new phenomenon based on the complexity of the underlying substrate and the scale of the underlying substrate. So what is, so we see this qualitative difference, the emergent difference between, let's say, our closest relatives, the chimpanzees and the humans, through this richness of communication, of, shall we say, thought and emotion. And, what is the intrinsic fundamental nature of human language or human communication or human understanding, or rather even the human machinery that we have been endowed with by nature? And I think it goes to the core of language as we have it today, and the core of communication as we have it today. Essentially, it is the communication of one person's viewpoint to another person. It is embedded in the structure of our language and our grammar. The subject, verb, object, or subjective phrase and objective phrase, this division of me versus you versus him or her, this viewpoint from which observations and communication proceeds, that is a fundamental feature of human language, of human communication. And that there's a huge benefit of that, because we're very precisely communicating subjective thoughts and experiences and feelings. But it's a partial view, it's a point of view, uh, sort of understanding of the world around us. And I think that's one of the gaps in the human machinery and the human nurture um, that we have so far developed. The other gap is regarding emergence. By having this individual point of view of communication, we don't readily see the collective emergence of some phenomenon or of some uh, state or understanding. All right, we are back at our rock, and it's a beautiful day today. A little bit cold, but wind and also windy, but clear and dry. So I'm definitely going to attempt climbing this rock, and let's see where we take it from there. We are back at the Cathedral of Tall Trees here. I can tell you for sure, monkeys can do that much better than I can. So maybe we are not that evolved after all. Talking about the understanding of emergent behavior, we try to do it. We have, for example, microeconomics, which understands the economy from the point of view of a single firm, profit maximization, organizational principles, all that kind of stuff. And we also have macroeconomics, which is the understanding of the aggregate economy based on the interactions of all of these micro agents in the economy. But there's no satisfactory theory that connects, with a detailed understanding of how the microeconomic actions add up to an emergent macroeconomic behavior. This connection between the micro and the macro, it comes up in many parts of our studies, and it's we have a theory for explaining the micro, we have a theory for explaining the macro, but we don't have a theory for connecting the two. It comes up, let's say, in physics. We have the understanding of quantum level forces and subatomic particles, and we have the understanding of the macro phenomena at the level of celestial bodies and sun and solar systems and so forth. But I don't think there's a theory yet that connects the two very well. Going into a gorge. A few years back, I was in Alaska, I think around August, and that was the time of the salmon run. Thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of salmon, probably something like millions of salmon were coming up from the ocean, up the rivers and streams, trying to find their nesting grounds, nesting places. And the streams were laden with salmon, thick with salmon. In fact, you could just put your hand in there and just pick up a salmon, a huge big salmon. And I was thinking, it's almost like you're seeing an undifferentiated mass of individuals. Same with herrings in the sea, penguins on the ice, mosquitoes flying around and swarming, all those flamingos, dancing in the shallow waters in Florida. Huge numbers of individuals. In the Serengeti, all the wildebeest and different animals migrating, the reindeer in Alaska and caribou, I guess. Lots and lots of individuals, lots of genetic experiments going on. And you can't really find the individuality. Maybe there is, it's hard to say at that level of that species, at that individual. There is individuality, of course, because evolution is working through them. But from our point of view, it is so undifferentiated. All right, here exiting the gorge again. And there we are. Yeah, so there's this undifferentiated collection of individuals from a species. Maybe, if you look at, say, humans trying to catch a local train in Bombay, or in Tokyo, where they packed them in like sardines. Is there a differentiation? Is there a differentiated individual, human in there? Maybe there is. I mean, obviously there is, but looking at it from a collection, we can't say that, hey, this is any different from the herrings that come out into the Pacific Ocean, or reindeer that go in a flock, and whatever a collection of reindeer is called. I mean, even how marketing shapes individual and collective behavior. Everyone likes to wear jeans because it gives them rugged individualism. And all these people wearing blue jeans, they all look the same. And yet, somehow, the human, from this mass of collection of individuals of a species, at some point stood apart and said, I am. I is the recognition of the individuation of that consciousness. And am is a understanding of separate existence, of that consciousness of individual existence. And since then, it has been this constant issue of definition of the individual. We've gone into more and more definition. Like they say, the law of the jungle is eat or be eaten. The law of the human jungle is define or be defined. So this push towards individual definition has really driven the individual and the collective. You know, this is our group, this is not our group, based on so many characteristics. This is my kingdom with these borders. This is my property. This is, mine. So this definition from the individual point of view is a part of this nature-nurture complex that we have, carried up so far. And that is a strength because we got to where we are. That is also the weakness because this is how far it can take us. From that, we come to coming back to the Upanishads, coming back to the more Catholic, more universal understanding principles, more universal state of being of foundations. The formula of the Upanishad is not I am. It is I am that. Soham asmi. Soham asmi. That I am. So what is this that? And what is the machinery of the body, of the genetic information, of the social contract, of the nurturing, the education, the training that gets us to this step function from I am to I am that. I'm going to stop here today with that.